Another huge shout out to custodials. If you've never changed trash cans and there's liquid in it, and then it starts petering out because there's a hole in the bag, it's what chemicals eat through plastic thin linings, or so what is the potential in bags with liquid or any like bulk of anything in it. When you hit it, it separates fairly easily. So we're going to touch upon these two ways of how holes are made. But first, um, like no one wants to talk about things that are gross. Like there's liquid inside of a cup, and you throw it into a garbage bag that is going to be excess liquid. But then there's just no option to pour it into a vessel on the side of a garbage because no one wants to like bother people to talk about how can I dispense this liquid, because that's just a dirty thought. And so then in order to not be an a-hole making a garbage bag full of liquid, you just have to go a bit further. And I'm doing this to explain, just the right way. Let me fix my pants real quick. So I'm dealing with these elastic bands on two pairs of pants, and it would be better than one because they act on each other for support. And actually your muscles and your hips, like, you can engage them in a way that has your pants held up, even though, like, they shouldn't be, but you can gain a skill, and that's acquiring one. But for the elastic bands, when they wear, it's like there's a potential that's lost in all human life forms. In the Beauty and the Beast, there's a rose that it never dies, and then it's like alive, but it's cut. And when something's alive, and it can be a plant or an animal, and I hate getting biblical, but it's just that one rose. It's just like Jesus, like he was at 33 and then ascended into heaven, and he's alive for like eternity. It's just like he did this because he defeated death. So the moment that a rose is cut from the ground, it's not rooted. So it's on a sure path of being dead. And so this is a case, of course, what happens when plants get cut off from the ground is they start dying. And then you can make a point in having its stem get cut on an angle and putting it inside a solution to make it live longer. But it's the same thing with the cup. If there's liquid in it and you're throwing it in a garbage can, it's assured that that can of garbage is going to have liquid in it. And it's not with all plants, because there's some that it can survive without being put into the ground and rooted when it's uprooted. And the bigger the plant is, like a tree, it's less apparent that it can survive in the ground without being uprooted in the ground. And so it's the same thing with animals. But we're on like a course where they die after a certain amount of time. And with humans, it's like 100 years, and in the past, it was like 400 years. So Jesus, at 33, it seems like he was in his heyday, because plants and flowers, they have a heyday where they bloom. And so Jesus, he was like on the mountain, and it was so bright this one time with all of his clothing. And so at that moment, it's like he reached a eureka moment where he was just like the salt of the earth, but better. And so at this point in time, it would be like a plant that was blooming, but then he came off of that high horse and chose to like carry the cross and like die for sins, even though he hadn't. And so that being the case is where like plants, they do two things. They like spew out crap, which is pollen, and this is like me, I just spewed out like liquid, and it spilled over my computer accidentally. And then I'm going to touch on that with how gradually you can click your throat when you're like doing indigestion, and it's different than like a nasal burp, but you can do it lower and lower, gradually and gradually. Then you can notice like if there's steam that comes out when you do it. That's like this entire other thing where it's like this acquired skill. Apparently, if you can do that without it being like noticeable, but you know that your throat clicks when you do it. So it's like I don't know, something I think that the LGBT community is doing with trying to change their gender and have it be like a thing. And so back to the animals, when they're like going to be dying, it's like because their elasticity is wearing out in the cellular structure because cells die. And so that's aggression when they like handle stuff that is bigger. Instead of pollen spewing out, they do it physically, like with change in biting. And so when that's of occurrence, it's of course like a bag getting poked instead of a liquid inside of a bag eating it out, or its environment eating it, the outside in. That would be what a plant pollinating around would be, because it's moving even though it's not uprooted. And so the difference of these two is like, yeah, the plant and animal, these are bio and then animals. And yeah, good for now. Now I'd like to address Juice WRLD's song. He was explaining hands up in a fire, burn, burn, burn. When I was a kid in school, they had us leave the school in buses because someone wrote on a piece of paper that there was a bomb, so it was a bomb threat. We had this drill, and if there really was one, we would have all been toast. But it's just like this whole precaution call for first responders. You don't want to say they're bad, but it's blatantly obvious that it's not gonna save you inside of like situations like that, or just like this whole thing with when you get on fire, you hit the ground and roll around. Okay, you know, let's hope that it's no accelerants on your clothing, with what that might mean. Polyurethane. And so like there's these constructs in that, and there's this whole thing with calling in a dispatcher, and then you have to wait, and then you gotta hope that your phone is within a signal. You know, it's like these stretches, and then they're asking the first question: what color clothing was the person wearing? You know, that's the biggest like thing that would help. And it's actually like, you know, the ratios in this kind of thing. So like it's when Juice WRLD's saying there's a fire, hands up. Like, I mean, why the hell not? I guess you want to like try and get from the ground because it's hotter on the ground in a fire. So, you know, you just raise your hands up and hope that there's like something you can pull on to jimmy your way out that. Yeah, I'm online like Debbie and dropping stuff. Seemed like the Holy Ghost you would have thought could never been. I gotta be entirely transparent. And when they say this and they have like a higher up standpoint, the government is weaponry. And just in general, any weapons and they're made military grade, they're better than usual ones. But when you start saying what is not dangerous, and then this whole ethos behind fighting things that are behind, like when it comes to stomach rot, gout, when you have arthritis, there's this gum that builds up and it's called gout. There's these other things, you know, yeast infections. Who would have thought? So if these are evolving that's like the blob, and so we're coming up with things to fix them, making a range of what is tolerable. And so when there's someone saying, oh, there's nukes are legal now worldwide, it's always been the case. If you drop a nuke, you just let gravity do its thing and it spills out over everyone. And it's this spillover effect where, yeah, they're legal. It's not that you can have them. Definitely, if it blows up in your territory, it would be that very second where there are legal, despite if, ands, or buts. And so it's this whole complex that I said the animal kingdom, they have sonar, they have effect. They literally do, but it's not like we're waiting for a post-industrial revolution to have cyberpunks and steampunks battle it out. Let's talk about change. I'm live on set, as always on deck. I'm on set, it's not an off switch because my capitalist, my capillaries, visionary on top of it. And really it's just bogging down back to the blob, this whole system read where if you're having to focus on 3 different things and you're like this least common denominator, it's going to be rather confusing. And so in 3 different things, if you're ahead of the curve, then you don't have to feel like you're in your garage building a bomb. Something I don't want to condone, but I mean, if you're trying to make a generator because the power grid's down, how many times the power grid goes down because the weather's cold, and we're just supposed to not look at that as if it's a thing?